Okay, I think we can get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this introduction to the Pew Marine Fellows program. I'd like to thank Natalie Char and Tina Chan for their help in connecting us to the Hong Kong MPA Alliance. Just a quick note that we are recording this session so that we can send this out to anyone from the Alliance who is not able to attend today. My name is Nate Fedrizzi. I'm a principal associate at the Pew Fellows program in Marine Conservation at the Pew Charitable Trusts. Today, I'll be providing an overview of the program. You'll also hear short presentations from two Pew Fellows working in Hong Kong, my co-hosts, Apple and Stan. I'll also share some information about steps to nominate candidates for the fellowship, and we'll have some time for questions at the end. As I mentioned, Apple and Stan are both current Pew Marine Fellows. Apple was recognized in 2019. She is a research assistant professor at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Stan Shea is our other Pew Fellow who was selected just this year. Stan's fellowship was announced last week. Congratulations again, Stan. Stan is Marine Program Director at Bloom Association Hong Kong and ADM Capital Foundation. The Pew Marine Fellows Program is a program of the Pew Charitable Trusts, which is a public charity located in the United States. Pew also has satellite offices in several other countries around the world. The program supports a global community of marine conservation experts by providing fellowships to mid-career professionals who complete research projects that contribute to improved conservation of the world's oceans. This year is the 26th anniversary of the Pew Fellows program, and since its start, the program has recognized over 200 marine experts in 42 countries. And as you can see from a handful of the current projects shown on the map, the program is highly international and has a global reach. Each Pew Fellowship provides $150,000 of funding allocated over 3 years for original conservation-oriented research. Each Pew Fellowship project addresses a specific challenge in ocean or coastal environments, is designed to generate new data, analyses, tools, or practices that can be used to improve conservation. The fellowship also has components to enhance the leadership capacity of the recipient. And fellowship projects are designed to inform more effective conservation and management of marine species and ecosystems. This is just a small subset of our current active projects to give you a sense of what Pew Fellowship projects look like. One example is Wang Song Lin, who's a fellow from 2021 who works in China. Song Lin is identifying the ecological and socioeconomic benefits of China's largest eelgrass habitat, the Bohai Bay seagrass bed, as well as the vulnerability of the habitat to local stressors. He's also working with local fishers to help design and promote eelgrass-friendly fishing practices. Another 2021 fellow, Dr. Trias Razak from Indonesia, is combining machine learning, field research, and experimental approaches to identify new ways to stable coral rubble fields, which is a major problem for coral reef habitats, and to improve reef restoration practices in Indonesia. In addition to funding for research, the fellowship program and Pew staff work with new fellows to prepare media packages about their project research and professional experience. This helps to create buzz around their projects. Some of you may have seen a bit of that with the announcement of Stan's fellowship last week. New fellows also join a public directory of trusted marine conservation experts on Pew's website. One of the most exciting parts of the program to me is the continued support for a global conservation network. After the fellowship project is completed, and during the fellowship project years, Pew Fellows are invited to attend an annual meeting of all current and past recipients of the award. This brings together that group of over 200 researchers that we mentioned on a regular basis. The annual meeting location changes each year, but at the event, which functions much like a small scientific conference, fellows share their research findings, discuss emerging issues in marine conservation, and oftentimes form new research collaborations. A new exciting component of the Fellows Program in the past couple of years is the Hong Kong Ocean Program, which was enabled through support from the Swire Group Charitable Trust. The program will award additional fellowships to permanent residents of Hong Kong, one each year in 2023, 2024, and 2025. Stan Shea, who you'll hear from shortly, is the first recipient of this funding and was selected this year in 2023. Candidates for this fellowship are asked to propose research projects that focus on Hong Kong's local marine environment or the city's role in a global marine conservation issue, such as the wildlife trade or shipping. So that's the overview of the fellowship. Now we'll hear from two Pew Fellows working in Hong Kong. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Apple Chui, 2019 Pew Fellow.
Thanks, Nate. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Oh, sorry, I'll share it again. Great. I hope you can see the screen right now as well as hear me well. Right?
Looks good.
Okay, thank you. So thanks, Nate, for the very nice introduction. So hi, everyone. My name is Apple. I'm actually 2019 Pew Marine Fellows working on corals in Hong Kong. Sorry about my voice because because I caught a cold last week and I'm still recovering from that. So today I'll be sharing with you our work on coral restoration, mainly like what we have been doing, what we have learned so far, and what next. So these work are actually supported by my Pew Marine Fellowship. Now, just a bit of background, unlike other reefal area, coral restoration in Hong Kong is very challenging. So what we are dealing with is a marginal coral environment with up to 15 degrees Celsius temperature fluctuation year-round, high sedimentation, salinity fluctuation, nutrient-rich water. And this video, of course, was taken in one of those very, very nice days. But most of the time, our water actually looked like this. So today, I'd like to talk about our restoration site in northeastern Hong Kong, that is the To Lo Harbin Channel. Now, this is the To Lo Harbin Channel in Hong Kong. My lab in CUHK is located here. Back in 1980, the Bush Reef and North Reef, the two islands along the To Lo Channel, there actually has been a record of very, very high coral coverage of up to 70 to 80%, which is more or less, you can imagine, like the video I just showed you. So what happened was due to anthropogenic disturbances like untreated sewage, livestock, industrial waste, the whole coral habitat was destroyed in just a few years' time. Okay, and this was described as the first marine ecological disaster in Hong Kong. Now, in 1987, the Hong Kong government took immediate action and implemented the To Lo Harbor Action Plan. And this is a 10-year plan trying to reverse the deterioration in water quality in To Lo Harbor. And after a decade of cumulative efforts, you can see that it works. The water quality of the area has significantly improved. But sadly, even with improvement in water quality, the corals just never come back, not even after 20 years of improvement of water quality. So now, with the cost of degradation being properly managed, we decided that perhaps it's really time for us to do something about that. And that's where we came in. Now, this is our marine science lab in CUHK, the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So one of our research focus is on coral restoration. Now, coral restoration, of course, is a huge topic. And so one of the first questions that we like to address is how can we create a continuous and sustainable source of healthy coral colonies for outplanting in the very first place? So here in our lab, we culture corals in our land-based nursery for restoration purposes. So we focus on effective coral nurseries and coral propagation techniques. Well, there are actually two ways in general when we talk about propagating corals. The asexual coral fragments and sexual, we call them coral babies. So what does it mean? Well, use plant as an example. Asexual fragment is just like stem cutting. Okay, you cut a portion of the plant, you grow them, and eventually it will become a new plant. So first, coral fragments, they're actually broken portion of coral colonies in the field. We collect them. We then further fragment them into smaller pieces and provide them with a base to attach on and grow them in our land-based nursery, allow them to recover a little bit, and then we'll use them for outplanting. And on top of that, we have sexually propagated corals, the baby corals. It actually involves the collection of gametes from corals during they spawn, and then we will culture them in the larvae, settle them as baby corals on the substrate that we provide. So you can see this picture, these little ones. We actually culture them in our lab nursery for 2 years until it reaches a size of like 2 to 3 centimeters in diameter, and then we will outplant them. So in 2019, with the support of Pew Fellowship, we have our first ever outplanting of this 2-year-old sexually propagated coral juveniles together with coral fragments, and then outplant them in Untitled Chapter for the purpose of restoration. And today I'm very proud to share with you 3 milestones that we have achieved so far in our degraded sites. So first, you can see is high survival. Of course, it's not really about us. It's really because of the improvement in water quality in general. The overall environment is now suitable for corals. So we have different species outplanted onto natural substrate directly onto the Untitled Chapter. And for all the outplant, we achieved, no matter it's fragments, no matter it's juvenile babies cultured from a sexual reproduction, we achieved like roughly 90% of survival, which is really a good number. Because remember, this site, Untitled Chapter, is not even inside a marine protected area. It's not a marine park. It's a formerly heavily degraded area. So to be able to achieve this number is really very nice. And also, we for the very first time see some indicator fishes coming back. For example, you see here, there's a pretty shy butterfly fish. We actually never see them before in Untitled Chapter, but after 2 years of our outplant, right now we have like 2 to 3 them in our restoration site. So this is really a good sign. We also see seahorses as well. Secondly, not only that the corals survive well, but after 3 years, when the babies turns 5 years old, they become reproductively viable in the field. They can spawn. So this is actually the first time ever happened in a former degraded site. So it actually means a lot, because if they continue to do that, they might be able to self-sustain themselves in the field. Thirdly, this little cute baby, 1 mm in diameter, is already our 2nd generation baby, so that we are actually culturing in the lab. So F2, what does it mean? It means that we collect the gametes from parents from the wild. These babies grow up and then they spawn, and then we just collect the gametes, and now we have F2 generation. So this is some really exciting news, and it also implies that basically the technique is ready. Okay, so now what we need to do is a little bit of upscaling, and that's what we are trying to do. So to further advance our efforts, Coral Academy, Sanwo Hoyun Coral Academy was actually an outreach program we launched back in 2018. We aim to, raise public awareness and inspire action in coral conservation through education and experience-based activities. So throughout the last 4 years, we have already reached over 20,000 students and teachers from local schools in Hong Kong. And over the years, we are really very grateful to have received tremendous support from different parties, like from the government, AFCD, from NGOs, especially WWF Hong Kong, and different education groups, to have launched some very, very cool programs in Hong Kong. So among all, I think our most well-received school program is the secondary school choral nursery program, which is co-organized with AFCD, the government department, also supported by my Pew Fellowship. So this is actually a one-year program. Schools are setting up tanks to help taking care of our corals, and also with lots of experience-based activity involved. And after the whole program, they return the coral, and then we would do the outplanting. So they're actually involved in frontline coral restoration work in Hong Kong. So this is actually a very exciting program. In 2021, together with WWF Hong Kong, supported by Swire Trust Tomorrow, we actually co-organized this coral rescuer citizen science program for general public. So this is actually a short program, just half a year in 2021 summer, more like a trial project for us actually. So this time we let the divers to come with us to experience underwater survey of corals, as well as the restoration process firsthand. So they just love it, and they, of course, they ask for more program to come, and I really hope so as well. And this year, I'm really excited to share with you that with the support of the government fund, Environmental Conservation Fund, we're actually launching this very exact same program again, but this time it is for local secondary school students. So if you know anyone of the schools will be interested, stay tuned, because we will call for applications very soon. And of course, the last program I'd like to introduce, our outreach program. This one is co-organized with AFCD, the government department. So this year, we also have a citizen science program coming up in Hoi Ha Wan Marine Park, which Stan is also part of the team as fish expert to guide the fish tours. So we guide the fish survey. So this is some very interesting and nice program for the public to participate in. So coming back to my project, I'd just like to say a lot of great things happened after I was awarded the Pew Marine Fellows, and allowing me and my team to work on restoration in Hong Kong, to figure out what works and what doesn't. And of course, there are actually more to be done, but I think we are on the right track. And right now it's actually time to scale up our coral propagation work. So my dream is actually to my dream is actually to receive a long-term government fund to set up a large-scale land-based coral nursery and education center to continue to advance our coral propagation and nurseries in Hong Kong to ensure sustainable supply of healthy coral colonies for restoration, or even large-scale restoration in Hong Kong in the future. So for community outreach, education is always the key. So work together, include local stakeholders. So last year, we actually have signed an MOU with WWF Hong Kong. So in this upcoming 3 years, we will be focused a lot on our collaboration on coral restoration, especially in Tolo Channel, reviving our coral initiative in Hong Kong. So there are a lot of exciting things happening on education, on outreach, and also for restoration as well. So with the support of my Pew Fellows, all these lessons learned will be revealed in order to develop a coral restoration protocol with not only technical part, but also outreach components as impact cases that would be applicable in Hong Kong, and also with a wider application, hopefully, and restoring, for example, coral communities in other parts of the southern China as well. So basically, that's all about it. And if you're interested in knowing more about our work, I'd like to share with you this webpage that is managed by my team. We have which is coralacademy.hk. So we also have some online resources there available for public use as well. So basically that's it. Thank you for listening, and questions and comments are welcome.
Thanks so much, Apple, for the great overview of your work. It's been great to watch your project evolve over the past few years.
Yeah.
If you have any questions for Apple, we'll have time at the end. Please feel free to use the Q&A tool or drop them in the chat. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Stan Shea, the 2023 Pew Marine Fellow from Hong Kong, and we'll hear about his upcoming work.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Apple, for the presentation. I hope you can see the PowerPoint slide.
Looks good.
Thank you. So, not like Apple, don't have a lot of like lovely video about the underwater Hong Kong. So the only thing about like is all these like fish pictures. So from coral to the fishes. So we have been doing underwater survey since 2014 to 2022. Basically, we were very lucky. We get to spend about 4,000 hours. So it's around 160 days underwater to do surveys in Hong Kong. And it actually helped us to have a basic idea. So this is like the map showing the survey area that we have been doing. So the bigger the bubble is, so which means the fish, the species biodiversity, the diversity is actually relatively higher than the small bubbles. So with the help from Pew Fellowship, we would like to continue doing survey underwater in the Hong Kong along these areas. But what we want to do now is prioritize. So this is a cumulative like fish species graph. So it's really easy to understand the x-axis, which is the number of dives that we do. So, and the y-axis is the cumulative number of fish species count in our survey. So think about if, let's say, if there are only 450 species, no matter how many dives you do like extra, and then the curve will be flat. So like, because you basically finish like survey and then to locate all the fish species in Hong Kong. But if we look at the cumulative for total dive, that like we still see there is opportunity that to find new species to Hong Kong. So that justify that we can continue diving. So not only continue diving or monitoring, but you can see if I break down to different dive sites, so most of the curve are still going up. So we actually gonna prioritize to do survey in different areas compared to like other sites. And so with the Pew Fellowship, so one thing that we want to do is to get more information and then on this area, because that could help us. So if we look at the Hong Kong Marine Protection Alliance that proposed marine protected area, most of the sites are actually in line with our survey. So we can and we hope to get more information that can actually feed like for better understanding of the situation of the dive site. And I think we all have heard like climate change, what happened in the land, and then like what's happening to different animals. But for fish, especially in South China Sea, the regions, there is not much has been done, and then not much like information that is available and actually understand. So one thing we have did some preliminary analysis and look at the data that we have. So think about Hong Kong is in a subtropical area. So we actually from 2014 to 2019, we get to see like number of tropical species in our water, like through the survey, are actually increased throughout the time. So we don't know if it's like about climate change, the potential effect, or what happened. So what we hope to do is like think about to talk about climate change, we always talking about decades data. So with the Pew Fellowship coming in, we actually managed to get from 2014 to 2024 at least, so that we can get the 10-year data, the decade, so we actually can do more analysis. We'll be looking for like modeling and then to look at the water temperature, to look at something that we have never like done those analyzed before, compared to simply just looking at the number of the species. So that's something we will be and we hope to do with the data that we collect in the future. And so climate change and also more information. And one thing we also want to do is look at the historical data. So not like Apple, like talking about since 1980 something, they have data on the coral situation. But in Hong Kong, the only first like underwater systematic like on doing survey with the Transat is actually done by Andy Cornish in 1999. So we hope to actually use our data and then try to compare what's happening in the past. And we have actually seen from his thesis in brief, like talking about 9 different species that actually covering more than 90% of the abundance. But when we actually compare to our data, 2 of the species on the left-hand side actually has gone. I mean, gone doesn't mean like they completely not being able to see from our survey. We can still see them, but they were no longer the most abundant species or common encounter species underwater. From now, we don't know why. So we also, the other thing we want to look at is like compare and look at the history, what has been done in Hong Kong in terms of fish survey and what can be updated. And finally, the other thing that we also want to do, we have seen those like areas that has like lot of like species about the fish diversity compared to others. But one thing we all want to do more is not just number of the species or the species diversity at the site, something called the key biodiversity area. So if on land, that's something called important bird areas, which is part of the key biodiversity areas. What does that mean? They actually use different criteria to look at the bird situation to actually categorize those areas. So because, for example, think about, you can always like, it's not argue, but you can always talk about like, does that mean if the place or the area has more number of the species, does that mean they are more worth to be protected compared to other place of compared to the less species area? So some of them may be like commercially important, some of them may be because they were threatened. So we just have to develop an idea or different criteria to set like where is the key biodiversity area for certain animal. And recently, because I'm involved in the IUCN Shark Specialist Group, so I learned about something called the important sharks and race areas, and then and then we just did like a sort of analysis in 2022. And now I actually want to see if there is something that we can do with the fish key biodiversity area by looking at different like criteria. So vulnerability, and then the range that they distribute in the area or in the region, and also the biology or the life history of the fish. And then to set some criteria, and also like other things like IUCN status or like the historical status of the species in Hong Kong. So we want to develop those like key biodiversity area for fish in Hong Kong for the first time. So hopefully that can help us to actually understand more in terms of like the marine protected area, or like what we want to do with them, where to do the marine protected area. So that's the Pew Fellowship gonna help me. And that's also something in line with the Chinese government, like only in 2022 that they start talking about the biodiversity area. They haven't go into detail on which taxa or the animal, but as you can see, this is the form for the regional area. So we hope to actually get more information to provide solid ground and framework for the future marine conservation policy. So welcome question and answer, or question time. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. That was a great presentation. Very excited to watch your work over the coming years. Share my screen. So if you have any questions for Apple and Stan from their presentations, please drop them in the Q&A. We'll go to those shortly. I did want to flag opportunities to get involved with the Pew Marine Fellows program briefly. So the Pew Fellowship is by nomination only, meaning that candidates for the award have to be nominated in order to apply. Each year, Pew invites international groups of experts to provide nominations to the program. For the Hong Kong Ocean Program, we hope that the Hong Kong Marine Protection Alliance will engage in this process and consider nominating individuals for the award. Each nominator is able to submit a nomination for one or two candidates for the fellowship, and Pew then reaches out to those candidates and invites them to apply. Proposals are evaluated by an external selection committee who recommend recipients to Pew. Just as a reminder, the Pew Fellowship targets mid-career experts, so individuals who are actively are done with their academic training and are now working in the field of marine science or conservation in some way. Project proposals submitted by applicants should articulate a marine conservation problem or issue linked to Hong Kong that their project would address. They should explain how their proposed research could inform local marine conservation efforts. And they should also include a plan for local stakeholder engagement, both during the 3-year fellowship and beyond. So that is the end of our presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out either to the email address shown at the beginning of this presentation. That's my address, or to the Marine Fellows inbox, which is our program address. You can also find out more about the program at pewmarinefellows.org. So now we'll open up the Q&A. Just to get things started, I will kick off with a question for Apple. Apple, what has been the most valuable part of your fellowship for your work so far?
Wow, thanks, Nate. I think the most valuable part of the fellowship was because during the presentation, I have just been focusing on the good things that comes in after I good things that comes in locally. You know, everything happens in Hong Kong after I received the Pew Fellowship. But I think what I value the most is actually the global network and the support system. For example, in Pew Marine Fellows, there are really a large group of coral experts. There are also not only experts, but they also are intensively focused on coral restoration globally as well. So I am very grateful to receive support from that group to be able to visit their lab. And to be able to talk to them, discuss with them, and to let them know about the situation in Hong Kong. And actually, just this year, we have a joint proposal to hopefully to have some seed fund from Pew to support a more global movement of coral restoration exercise as well. So I think what I value the most, not only the things that happen locally, but of course globally, to let more people know about the things that we have been doing in Hong Kong, all the conservation things, the difficulties that we have, but at the same time, we also have something that is very unique. I think this is a wonderful platform for us to advertise our Hong Kong conservation efforts, marine environment, and also to receive support globally as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Apple. We've got a question for Stan. What has been the greatest surprise from the survey data so far?
I think, to me, I mean, one of the surprises is like actually the lack of like underwater research on fish in Hong Kong. So basically, I'm very surprised that basically there was no data available for me to actually compare, like only go back to 1999 from that single thesis that will allow me to actually compare the species composition and also like the data. So that's my surprise. And I think the marine, well, I mean, I think the other thing is the climate change thing. I am also very surprised, like that number of tropical species, because we have never thought about that and we have never done such analysis and that available that in the area. So I was also very surprised to see. And the last surprise, which is there are still a lot to be found in Hong Kong for underwater, because so far, I think about 2014, there were on record, there were about only 350 reef fish species in Hong Kong that were record. And then so far through the survey, we were very lucky. We get like a new species to Hong Kong. We found extra 50. So basically it's like more than 10% increase in terms of the number. So that means there's a gap for actually to find more like species or to actually understand what's happening. So I would see, so far that was the surprises that I had. I mean, I'm also very surprised to see Apple's video, like they spot a butterfly fish in the Total Harbor. We have never been. I mean, I'm looking forward, like Apple is bringing me there to do survey.
Thanks, Stan. And it sounds like a great opportunity for future collaborations between the two of you as well. So I don't see any more questions in the Q&A or the chat. But if you have questions for the panelists, please feel free to send them in to Marine Fellows and we'll forward them along. And thank you all for joining. We encourage you to consider experts to join this community of Pew Fellows. So thank you all.